remember the first time that I heard the virtuoso cellist Mstislav Rostropovich and how inspired I was by his performance. I then and then knew that this is the technique that I would like to have. That effortless virtuosity that he portrayed was such an inspiration, and I pursued that dream to learn that technique.
Welcome to Virtual Concert Hall's live music channel. I'm James Welch, your host for today's show. We are connecting musicians and audiences in real-time performances and music news from around the globe. Welcome to today's performance. We have a special one because we have the amazing, outstanding cellist Anzél Gerber here with us. But before we begin, I would just like to let all of our audiences know out there that we stream on all the major platforms: Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. I said LinkedIn. Yeah, and you can leave a comment on those videos, on those platforms, and one of our tech wizards can put them up on the screen. So if you have a question for us, leave a question and we can answer it. Or if you just want to check in and say hello, you do that, we'll say hi back. So just write in the comments of whatever platform you're watching on, and we'll make time to show all that a little bit later. Today's program, yes, it's a very special one, and I'm excited here. We have the outstanding cellist Anzél Gerber with us, and she's been praised by various critics for her ability to capture the audience through her mature artistic approach, extraordinary musicality, and inimitable technique. Anzél Gerber is increasingly performing on internationally renowned stages. Anzél Gerber's art as cellist has been shaped by Russia's most prominent teachers and soloists. After her initial training in South Africa, her country of birth, she studied for 3 years under Alexander Fedortchenko in Spain, and continued her studies at the Moscow Conservatory under Alexander Kniazev. I hope I'm saying that right. Later, as part of her PhD In music performance at the University of London, she pursued her studies under Russia's legendary cello teacher Natalia Shakhovskaya. She regularly performs with world-renowned pianist Ben Schumann. The duo received the Bernis Costanza Arezzo Giampiccolo di Donna Fuggetta IBLA Award as overall winners of the IBLA Grand Prize International Music Competition in Italy in 2012. Apart from her performance career, Dr. Gerber has dedicated lecturer and researcher. She received her PhD in music performance from Goldsmith College in London, and her research has entitled Critical Success Factors in Cello Training is a comparative study on cello training in Germany, Russia, the United Kingdom, and the United States of America. And it's just been wonderful. It bases around a virtuosic playing, and she just presents herself so well as a performer and teacher, and we're so excited to have her here. And we could bring her on right now. Is she here? Yes, she's here. Anzél, welcome.
Thank you so much,
So
and
good
thank
to
you
have
for
you.
this wonderful opportunity to talk to you today. I really look forward to the interview.
We're so glad to have you here on the show here. And where you are in Vienna, right?
Yes, I'm in Vienna, Austria, the city of music, as they also call it here, and where so many composers lived, like Mozart and Haydn and Brahms and Beethoven, so many wonderful composers um,
Wow.
working here in Vienna. So it's really inspiring to be here and to almost have that culture where the music history almost comes alive when you walk the streets here, and it's a privilege to be here.
Well, it's a privilege having you here. And I
Thank you.
really enjoyed that performance that we just had at the beginning of it's the Schumann Adagio and Allegro.
Yes.
And we were very thrilled to see that performance. And where was that recital given?
That recital was given in South Africa in Stellenbosch at the university where I was working between 2014 to 16. And then I moved to Vienna after that. So I'm based in Vienna since 2017.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, it's really it's such a great hall and a great place. And
It's great acoustic also, and I was fortunate to play also with the pianist Ben Skuman. He's also a Steinway artist, and he won many international competitions. But he's based in London, where he's also performing a lot. But he has a professorship in Pretoria in South Africa, so he's traveling quite a lot between the two countries where he's working. But we usually try to catch up and play together because I really enjoy playing with him, and it's just wonderful to be working with him. He's such an inspirational pianist, also an inspirational.
That's wonderful. I was gonna ask where he was from and all that. Thank you for saying that because he's an amazing pianist. Um,
Yes, no,
it really and as I was preparing the and researching for this broadcast, I couldn't get over just how great he was. Of course, how great you are, and the two of you together are just like this. You know,
we
you're
enjoy really playing together, and
perfect synchron.
we grew up together in Pretoria, but then our roads went apart a little bit because he was studying at the Imola Scuola Pianistica with Eliso Versaladze and with many other professors, and then also in London he studied there, and I was studying in Moscow, and then I went later to London, so we didn't catch each other along the way often, but then we managed to play together more, and we also played in the States, and we had our Carnegie Hall debut there. So
Wow.
we have fond memories from the States and also performing there. So we always try to get together from time to time to
Wow.
perform. And it's always wonderful, a privilege to be with him.
It's been a lifelong friendship and career together. How
Yes,
wonderful.
yes.
And I mean, that shows through on the stage, and we're going to see a lot more of that today.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I have to share one great thing that I read on your website, like your reviews, that I just thought really captured most of what I was seeing. Is it said a young musical spirit not bound by stereotypical ideas, and we're gonna see how that. We're gonna prove that right by showing a whole bunch of your clips and hearing all of your future performances as well. But we yeah, we definitely hear that. Which brings us to our topic, teaching virtuosity. You're certainly a virtuosic performer, and who better than to be presenting on this today than yourself? We're so lucky to have you for that.
I have so much respect for so many cellists that are so inspirational to me as well. But I think why I was it's always for me a motivation to wake up in the morning and to think, what can I do more to be a cellist that can perform the works effortlessly, and to almost raise the bar every day, and to try and also find methods and ways where I can help my students to perform in an effortless way, and to really have the technique to express the music as much as the music needs to be expressed, so that we're not just striving to play fast notes when we play virtuoso pieces, because virtuosity for me is when you can really make the music come alive, and that you have such a technique that that the audience is actually not aware of the technique, but really are just aware of the beautiful music and what you want to express with the music. Because I think in the end, that's why we make music, is to communicate. And I think if that line of communication is open, because the technique is carrying the musical idea and the musical understanding of the performance, I think that's what's wonderful about it. And for me, that is pure virtuosity, when those things come together, where you actually just hear the music and the person playing and the instrument and whatever is going more in the background. And because for me, virtuosity is not a show where you show off, it's where the music comes alive. And I think that's my goal, and I hope that I will also reach that goal. But it's for me a motivation also to find methods, and it was also for me my motivation for doing research on the topic of how you can get children also to play effortlessly, and to also prevent injuries.
That's wonderful.
Having a good technique, because I was fortunate to do quite a lot of research on gifted children, and I realized that sometimes they are pushing themselves so hard, and sometimes it's also the parents or the teachers even that are pushing the children very hard to almost get to that level of that high level where you can perform almost all the repertoire effortlessly as soon as possible. But then you always run the risk that the body is still developing and the hands are still developing, and sometimes when they push themselves so hard, they start practicing so many hours, which is sometimes necessary also to do, but you need to practice obviously in a very focused way and with
Indeed.
So if that goes wrong and the technique is not very established and they know exactly what they do technically, they run the risk of burning themselves out and dropping out. And it was quite alarming that I realized that when I was doing my postdoctoral research, I researched the gifted children and how gifted young cellists are trained in the States, in Russia, in the Asian countries like China, Korea, Japan, and also how they train gifted children in Austria and in the UK. And it was quite a big shock for me to see how many children drop out and burn out in the process, because they are pushing it so much to get to that top level as soon as possible, and
Yeah.
then one can really run the risk. And 30 to 45% of the children dropped out, which was extremely sad for me to see, because you lose not only the talent in the person, but you lose the person, the human being behind the instrument.
Indeed.
Gets
Yeah.
lost in the way, in the process. And that was so sad for me to see, that some of them they are not healthy human beings. And I think my aim with my teaching is also to always remember that the person behind the instrument, that person must grow and develop optimally. And obviously we need to have a technique to play and to express ourselves.
Indeed.
But in the end it must be done in such a way that that person can always grow as a musician, so that you are not just copying another cellist because the road is quicker to just copy and go on that way.
Yeah.
But that you must, I think it's very important today that musicians really engage with a composer, engage with a score, and think creatively in a way to find a voice and to be honest about what they expressing. Because I think one is tempted today because we are having this wonderful internet and you can listen to so many different recordings. When I was growing up, it was not the case. So in a sense,
No,
you
same.
are
Yeah.
thrown in the deep end. You must find your own
Remember
way.
all those days where we go to the library and check out the records, and we only have an
Exactly,
hour to
exactly.
listen to everything with everyone around making noise and
Yes,
trying to
and-
scribble down notes on paper and and I remember those
Exactly.
days.
So nowadays, everyone can listen almost to such a wide range of recordings. But then some children or some musicians are tempted to think, oh, that's a great performance, I just copy it and then it'll sound great. But unfortunately, that's not always
Yeah.
the case, because once Rostropovich also said, if you copy what someone else is doing, it's almost like an empty bottle of wine. The wine is not in there. It's just the bottle. You see the bottle, but you realize it's not the original idea or the truth behind what you almost expressing in the
Exactly.
music is not there. And I think it's a difficult process because it takes time, and obviously in today's rushed world everything needs to have a quick fix, so
Yeah.
some people don't want to really search for how to find that road. They just
No.
try to copy. But I think the teachers also have a responsibility to assist the students so that they can really search ways to express and also get to know techniques, how to find different ways of expression on the instrument,
Exactly.
and how to get all the different colors and intensities out of the instrument. So I think it's very important to the way we teach, and I hope that I
Indeed.
can make some difference there in my own teaching also for my students, so that they can find their own voices in the music and how they express
Wow.
themselves.
So I think you answered most of my questions already, and I didn't even have to ask them. No, this has been
Sorry.
great. No, I was going to ask you about, if virtuosity could have moments of soft lyricism too. It doesn't have to necessarily be loud and fast, which you're saying. And
Yes,
we actually have a clip that we'd like to show of you playing something soft and lyric from Schubert's Arpeggione, and it's very impressive and lyrical, but it's not super loud and fast. And
Yes.
let's take a little break and look at that clip right now.
Thank you.
So it's just so beautiful playing. And
Thank you.
you can hear it's soft and lyrical, but you're jumping all over that fingerboard, shifting and getting all those notes, dope beep, and all that. And
Yes.
I know that can't be easy to do and must take hours of practice to get right.
Oh,
Am I right?
yes, I think the Arpeggione Sonata is for me the most one of the most beautiful works, obviously for cello. It
It
was for
is.
the arpeggione instrument, which was like a hybrid between a cello and a guitar. And once I
Mm-hmm.
was so excited here in Vienna, I saw the original arpeggione instrument, which
Ooh.
Schubert actually composed this for, and it's here in a museum.
Oh my
And
gosh! Now I have
because
to come to
Schubert
Vienna.
lived here and they composed it for Stauffer, who made this arpeggione actually. And then there were quite a few instruments that were like almost experimental instruments that unfortunately didn't survive our times.
Mm,
And after a time, this instrument was extinct and no one played it anymore.
mm.
But they still have this original instrument, the original arpeggione, here in Vienna in the
Wow.
museum. And I was so fortunate, I was so happy to see it because on that day when I was going to the museum, I was already
Which
tired. It's a wonderful big museum, but there are
which
so much.
museum is it? Do you remember?
It's the Kunsthistorisches Museum.
Okay.
But it's where they have such a wonderful collection of all the keyboard instruments also, from
Oh wow.
the spinet, the clavichord, harpsichord,
Oh my
and then
gosh.
how it developed, and also all the instruments which Beethoven played on, and then how it developed into the
Oh wow.
concert grands that we have today. So it's fascinating to see it. And I
Okay.
was
I'm
walking and
coming to
my
Vienna.
feet.
I,
Yes, you
I've
should
been there
come
once,
here.
but I need to come back.
You
Just
should,
just to see all
yes.
this, and to hopefully catch like a live performance of yours.
That'll be great to have you
The
here. But the arpeggione, I saw it then, and then some of the things really made much more sense for me when I play the instrument. I mean, when I play on the cello, the sonata, because you realize why it's sometimes in a sense more difficult on the cello because the arpeggione was tuned in the arpeggio, which was almost
okay.
like the open strings, and then it had frets like the guitar, and but then you play it with a bow, so it's a very strange kind of
Wow.
mix between a guitar and a cello. But it's such a wonderful sonata, and Schubert is just genius,
It
the way
is.
he composed it. And I think for many people it's the most beautiful sonata. I also heard that when Rostropovich sadly passed away, when he was on his deathbed, they asked him, "What would you like to listen to as
Oh.
your piece or some recording?" And I mean, he was a pianist, he was a conductor, he was a cellist, and
Mm.
he knew all the repertoire from almost the singing, everything. He knew all the symphonies so well. And then he said, "I want to listen to the Arpeggione Sonata, which I have played with Britain." So he listened to that recording of his with Britain. And in a sense, I can understand it because sometimes when I listen to Schubert also,
Mm-hmm.
some of his other music, it's just
Oh,
like
it's wonderful.
heavenly. So
Yeah.
I just love to play it, but it's always a challenge. I've never
Wow.
thought, okay, now I can play the arpeggione sonata with ease.
No.
I always think, woof, it's always a challenge, and it's great always to revisit it. I've played so often, and I've played it since I was 18.
Wow.
But
That's great.
it's always a challenge, and it keeps you on your toes
Yeah.
because it's so refined and it needs to be so perfect, but also so in a beautiful sense, so simple. One
Yeah.
mustn't complicate it. It must just be there and just be as beautiful as
And
it's supposed to be, you know. So
yeah, and yeah, I mean, it really touched Sir James Galloway. I mean, he rearranged it for the flute, even, and
yes.
I've actually played it with many more flutists than I have cellist, but when it comes down to it, I just love it on the cello.
Yes,
It's just wonderful.
I love it.
Yeah,
The cello is my is
yeah.
my instrument. I must say, it
You
has
know,
the possibility to express every possible emotion, and it's got that range where you can really go
it's
in the
great.
bass and in the top, and that's why I just love to play it on the cello. I think
You
it's
know what?
just
Let's hear a little
fun.
bit more of it. We have some more. If we can
Thank
play
you.
that, yeah, that's just wonderful. Oh, it's wonderful.
Thank
Just love
you.
that and and
Yes, it's a
it's so great.
beautiful
And
ending.
that's the only part of the flute arrangement that I don't like, where they go woo, 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 or something. But
Yes.
it no, it's just beautiful playing, and the two of you are so great together. And yeah,
Thank you.
I mean, I would myself define that as lyric virtuosity. I mean, because there's so much invested into making a sound like that so clear and in tune and together, and
Thank
that just
you.
doesn't happen overnight. And bravo.
Yes.
Um,
Thank you so much.
we've talked quite a bit about your inspiration and your research, but what we haven't mentioned much of is that you have a website devoted to teaching virtuosity, and we have
Yes.
a celloworld.at here, where you have a whole um, presentation about yourself teaching, and and a schedule. I didn't see that before. Yeah, great. And all of your experience, but you teach cello sessions online, is that right?
Yes,
Yeah.
I enjoy
And
very much teaching online. I have also for students, I have individual one-on-one lessons, and then where you can book your session, where you can book your lesson.
right here.
And then I also have special courses that I have.
Oh, you have one for teacher courses, don't you?
Yes,
Yeah,
so
let's
I
look
have
at
for
that here.
students, I have for
Yeah.
teachers, because I found that there's quite a need for teachers also to be able to contact someone
Right here,
who
yeah.
might give them great advice on someone who's experienced in that field, because some teachers are sometimes a little bit hesitant to ask colleagues, because they might think, oh, the colleague might think I don't know that,
Yes.
or they are hesitant to open up
Yeah.
and freely ask someone advice.
That's wonderful.
When I was in the beginning of my teaching career, I'm teaching for 25 years now. So it was quite a challenge for me also to find my way initially. And sometimes I wished I could just ask someone, in the case when you find this problem in a student, or what can cause that, or how do you solve something, or sometimes teachers get the opportunity to teach a very, very talented student and they don't know the way. How can they optimize their teaching? How can they develop that talent? What does that child need actually? So I developed this website also to assist teachers
This is
if
great.
they would have questions, if they want to ask. Also sometimes you have different stages of the development. So I think it's very important that when one starts, when you begin a student, whether he's or she is 4 years old, or if it's an adult, obviously there are different criteria or different ideas of how you will develop that talent. But for me, it's very important that you know that each talent is precious and is individual and needs a very individual way of how you develop that talent. But I think it's very important, especially for gifted students, how
Oh,
you
I think it's
develop those.
wonderful. Yeah.
And I would like to share both from my own experience and also what I've learned in research, and how I've developed my own students who are taking part in competitions, how they can also how you develop those students. And for the students, sometimes they find, okay, I'm going this path with my teacher, but maybe I just want to, before I go into an audition or do a competition or something, just have some extra advice, or just get almost confirmation that what I'm doing is good, or maybe just get a hint or a tip. You could
That's
maybe
great. Yeah.
add that or that, and then it just adds that spark to the performance. So
Yeah.
I try to give something like that. It's not to take a student away from a teacher or anything, but
Oh
just
no. Yeah.
to add on to what they're
Well.
doing, and just to give maybe some hint or a tip from my own experience being on stage, and also coaching students for competitions, being in the jury, sometimes on the panel, how we almost look at the student, how we look at that artist on stage, and maybe some advice how they can present themselves in a more comfortable
Oh,
way, or
exactly.
just to be comfortable on stage and to really have that confidence also in their performance, and just to give them those practical hints and some advice and also encouragement. I think it's very important that when you walk on stage, that you have that confidence that you need, but that you also know how to be in the music and how to project those ideas to the
Indeed.
audience.
Yeah, and I've always told my students as a teacher myself, that you're never going to get everything that you need from one teacher or one source, and so
Yes, I
it's
think.
good to explore out there. You have a steady teacher, and it's good to explore and just get other opinions, and it not necessarily move to a different studio, but maybe
No, just
consult with
to.
someone. And it looks like you're
Exactly.
set up in that way where everybody can kind of go at their own pace a little bit and just take
Yes, yes.
one session at a time here and there. And
Yes,
you've
it's
actually
also free.
you've made some compositions to help teach your techniques, or that go along with your techniques as well. I see that you have one of the Bazzini's La Ronde del Lutin
Yes,
that you did, that shows off virtuosity, and that's originally for the violin, isn't it?
Yes, I love the violin repertoire. So
It's
I'm always
great.
inspired listening to violinists. So
Yeah,
I was stealing a bit of their repertoire
you know what? That's great
to
because
play on the cello.
I
So
always say all the string repertoire is some of the best repertoire out there. String and string chamber, better than solo piano. And I'm saying that as a pianist myself. I mean, it's just some of the best repertoire out there. We actually
yes.
have a clip that we prepared where you're introducing your ideas for this technique and then presenting the bazzini that we'd like to show right now.
Thank you.
Yeah, enjoy.
Covered a new freedom and an effortlessness in my technique, which enabled me to play the virtuoso pieces for cello with much more ease. Before, I got very tired and sometimes even experienced pain when I was playing before I could learn that technique. But since then, I had the freedom to express myself also in the virtuoso pieces and to play it with much more freedom and effortlessness. Now I have developed a technique to also play the violin pieces, the violin virtuoso pieces on the cello. Formerly I thought, no, that's impossible. It's just, you can't just do it. It is just too difficult. It is too fast. It must be so light and so easy, and it is just not working on the cello. But now I have found a new way to also play the virtuoso pieces on from the violin on the cello. And I would like to share that technique with you because it just makes it so much easier also to play the cello pieces and the cello virtuoso pieces on the cello.
Wow. This is just outstanding. Wow, bravo.
Thank you. It's such a
To
fun piece to
both
play.
of you. I mean,
It's,
my gosh, to the gods of cello and piano there. I mean, that's just wow. That was so impressive. I mean, the playing is so symphonic. It doesn't sound like I'm listening to a cellist and a pianist or even cellist pianist together. It sounds like a whole symphony the way that you both
oh,
play, I mean, just the different tones and styles that you get in so well together. I mean, it's, I mean, you would swear that there was a whole orchestra behind you with a conductor like reining it all in, and you.
actually, that's my next step. I want to do it with the orchestra. So
Uh,
I'm
oh, that would
really
be
hoping
amazing.
because
Um,
I've arranged quite a lot of violin repertoire, and also the some pieces that you actually do with orchestra, with violin and orchestra. So I'm also playing the Bruch violin concerto now on the cello,
oh,
and
neat. Well,
I'm looking forward to hopefully perform it this coming season.
oh man, I wish I
So
could be in the audience for that. Um,
thank
that
you.
that's congrats, bravo. Now one thing I want to show everybody is that they can actually purchase your arrangements, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
they
So
are.
on
I've made quite a few of them, so
yeah,
they are.
this is
There's
Cello
also
World AT/arrangements, and yeah, we have the Bazzini here, which we just listened to. But if we scroll down, we have all these other ones here,
yes,
and
so
that
there are quite a
that's
few
just
of them.
and they could just click and order them and play, and then they can go back to your website and take your lessons
That
and
would be great. I would
and
love
play
share
virtuosically.
everything with my with students and to also help them to play with more
Indeed.
effortlessness and to express themselves in their music. So
Oh,
I
that's wonderful.
would be
So
happy to have students.
we're getting close to the end here. We're starting to run out of time. So I'd just like to ask before we sign off, do you have any advice for young aspiring musicians, particularly those who might be auditioning? We have a lot of auditions here with our operation.
Yes,
And
it's great what the
what could
virtual
you
concert
offer?
halls and the Sound Espressivo is also offering. And I think it's we're living in a very competitive world today, and I think lots of students they push themselves a lot, obviously, to develop their talents
Hmm.
and to to get heard almost, or almost so that they get attention from the audience, because we have so many violinists and cellists, pianists, so many musicians that are great players today. So the question is almost, how do you get heard? And I think the it's very important that you search for what sound and what message and what beauty you want to portray through the music, and to really search in an honest way to project your music so that you can that we search the truth in the music, that what we understand there, and not just to copy from someone else because it's easier to copy, but to really engage with the score, to also do some research about the composer, what was the circumstances in which he or she composed the music, what was the almost to what happened in that time when that composer was living that could have influenced the music and his composition style, and also the tradition of how they performed that music in the time that where that composer lived, if
Indeed.
there is some information available, but also to compare different scores. I find that sometimes students tend to download it just from the internet because it's easier to get it, and it's available. But
It
I
is,
think it's very important to do much more and to compare scores. I find that sometimes there are wonderful scores that that's almost in the country of the composer, where the composer lived, that one can
Mhm.
find the original scores or facsimiles of
Oh,
those
yes.
scores, and that you actually compare what was in the original, what was printed, because I found that sometimes even scores like Chopin's sonata for cello, it was for me so interesting because there are wonderful Urtext scores here, especially in Vienna,
Hmm.
where they have Doblinger and the Henle Verlag,
Henley, yeah.
when they are really doing so much to research what the original manuscript said and how they printed it afterwards, and all the different editions that were printed. They're doing a lot of
Right
research.
on,
But what I
yeah.
found was that, for instance, the Chopin Sonata, I played it also with Ben Skuman, and he had a copy of the sonata which was published in Poland. And
Hmm.
it's completely different from the other editions. And it was so interesting because it was much more, I would say, true to what the original ideas were, and the phrasing and
Wow.
the almost commas that he put in that's not available in the other editions. And also, when I studied in Russia, it was fascinating to see how the original, almost the first editions that Shostakovich, for instance, published, or Prokofiev, how it differed from editions which I bought in the Western parts of
Oh,
of
of
the world,
course.
you know. And
Everybody has their educated opinion about how it goes,
yes,
and
and
there's
I
value to
also
all that.
exactly, and it's very interesting sometimes to compare and to say, oh,
Hmm.
this is in here and that's there, and
Hmm.
to search what you find is what could be the best edition to use, what could be the best way um, to to project the ideas of the composer. And because also when I was in Moscow, for instance, my teacher once took out a score and she said, look, I was working with Shostakovich on this concerto, and he made these notes for me,
Oh, wow.
and about the phrasing, about the what, and he actually wrote it in there, but it's not available sometimes in other scores. But in the Russian editions, then they started
Wow.
to print those notes almost
Oh, that's
in the
amazing.
score. So sometimes I think we must not just get the first edition that we can find from the
No,
internet,
oh no.
although there could be great editions as well. But
You might get lucky. Yeah.
don't make the way too easy for yourself. Always try to find more and to search for more, and not just copy or do something like that, in your way of performance. Truly try to find what you want to say with the music, and invest the time to find the colors and the intensities in your sound, and how you can get that out of your instrument, because the instruments also have their own voice, and we need to work with that. So I think it's very important to engage with the instrument itself, and to find to almost get that beauty and that color,
Indeed.
and that out of your instrument, and to really spend time, and not just almost go superficially, make a quick fix. I just copy, and then my teacher says it's good.
Yeah.
Really try to find your own voice, and invest time in that
Wow.
process.
That's perfect, Ansel. And we're getting very close to the end here, but I mean, I couldn't have said that better myself. It's great, and it's very obvious that your playing reflects all of that advice, because
Thank you
it
so
is
much.
truly unique and creative in ways that I've never heard, and very compelling to listen to, and well presented. And just bravo to you.
Thank you so much, and I would love to share whatever I can with
Of
students
course,
and with
in
my audiences. So thank you so much for this wonderful
our
opportunity,
pleasure.
that I could share something like also with the students and with the audiences, and I hope that they will also enjoy the journey and that process. And I just wish them all the best, and I hope to hear them also in the Sound Espressivo competition, and also the virtual concert hall presentations.
Yes.
It's always
Oh, that would
so
be
wonderful
wonderful.
to hear young performers. So thank you very much for this opportunity, and I
Our
wish you
pleasure.
all of the best.
If you'd like to know more about Anzél, you could check out her website, anzelgerber.com. And she has many websites, celloworld.at, which is what we showed most of today. And there's also music seminar at AT. You're everywhere. This is great.
Thank you.
Um, before we sign off, I'd just like to mention that, we're live every day at 12, and with new programs that portray many artists, past participants, teachers, and we present new and unique topics in the field of music and education. And we are streaming on every platform. We have a wide range of supporters out there that make this programming and all of our events possible. Thank you. We could not do that without all of your help. We also have an amazing team behind the scenes that do all this, like all these fancy graphics and cyber Olympics that are going on to make this broadcast possible. We have Frane behind the scenes there. Frane, thank you for everything that you're doing for us today. And this has just been a wonderful time here. And Sel, thank you again for being here with us. It's just been lovely, and you've certainly revolutionized cello technique and teaching. So
Thank
another
you.
bravo and congrats to you. In the
Thank you
few
so much.
moments that we have left, I'd love to hear a bit more of your amazing performing. We have one more clip of you, Smetana's Aus der Heimat number
Yes,
2, which that translates to house or
from my homeland.
from my homeland. Okay, I was
That's right.
close.
Yes.
I got the house part. Yeah, but great. So let's hear a little bit from your homeland, and with that, we will sign off. And thank you again, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.